Welcome everybody to this session, making online teaching and learning creative using Adobe. And this is the second session of a full week of professional learning that we've got happening this week. We're going to start with an acknowledgement of country. The lands that we all stand on are and always will be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lands. We pay our respect to our First Nations people, past, present, and emerging. And just a quick prayer to start with. We call on God's grace to protect us in this time of uncertainty, to guide us with our learning, to support us as we navigate new things, to shield our loved ones from harm, to comfort those who are lonely, and to be with us in everything that we do. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Okay, so just a quick reminder to everybody who's present, this webinar is being recorded. That means you can go back for future reference and have a look at what's happening. We also encourage you to use the chat functions that you'll find typically down the bottom of the screen to ask questions. I'll be in the background there working my way through that. And I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Dr. Tim Kitchen from Adobe. He's a very passionate educator and works in this space full-time. He also has a weekly online professional learning opportunity that he's going to tell you a little bit more about. But for the moment, if I could just get Tim to take over the screen and we'll jump into his presentation.
Sure, let's see. Hopefully you can see my title screen there.
Perfect.
Great, good. So hi everyone, and welcome to this online event titled Making Online Teaching and Learning Creative Using Adobe. My name is Tim Kitchen and I'm Adobe's Senior Education Specialist for the Asia Pacific region. And this is my 30th year of being involved in education. 23 years in the classroom as a primary, secondary and higher ed teacher, and 7 years in this role at Adobe. My main job is to empower the next generation to be lifelong creators. And I really believe that that has actually been my job for 30 years, even though I didn't realize it was at the time. So I really believe that creativity is so important in no matter what you teach, whether it's maths or science, or whether it's in the creative subjects, or even if it's physical education, to think about you as being an advocate for creativity is so important. And now that we're doing a lot of our teaching online, or will be doing a lot of our teaching online, and who knows, this could continue as a process of teaching into the future as well, way beyond COVID-19. Let's think about it as a creative process. Let's think about it as being something that is a real stimulus for creativity, rather than just getting back to the basics as we're often trying to do when we're struggling with the technology. What I'm going to aim to do for you for this session is I'll just whip through the slides now so you get an idea of what we're going to be doing, and then we'll just jump into it. So we're going to be working with Adobe Spark to start with, just to give you an idea of what Spark is, and we're going to get you to create a Spark page for this session. I've got a lot of resources on Spark that I'm going to be giving you. My session tomorrow is going to be focused on Premiere Rush. It's a one level up from Spark Video. So for those of you who find Spark Video far too simple, then Premiere Rush would be your next level. It's nowhere like Premiere Pro. It's not that high-end professional tool that we have. It's a very much a cut-down version, but incredibly powerful tool, especially when you're teaching in an asynchronous and an asynchronous model. I'm just going to do a very quick overview of all the Adobe apps, because that's a lot of questions I get from teachers about what are they and what do they do. I won't spend a lot of time on that because I just want to focus on the apps that are most relevant for you at this time. And then I've got a number of resources for you, including an article that seems to have gone viral after I wrote it about 2 weeks ago now, and give you the main tips on how to do an effective online teaching, both synchronous and asynchronous model. And then a range of other tips where you can go and get further assistance. Most predominantly the Adobe Education Exchange, which we've now just about hit 780,000 teachers, which is just incredible, really. We've got some incredible resources for you through that portal, and our YouTube resources and our live resources. And then I'm going to finish off with a summary and then a chance for you to connect with our Adobe Education team if you'd like to. So that's the plan. Can I get you all now to open up a browser? So see if you can actually have two screens working. So you'll divide your screen up into two if you know how to close and make your windows a bit smaller, or just flick between two screens if you need to. You'll still be able to hear me, but you may not be able to see me if you're on another screen. Can I recommend that the browser is not Internet Explorer? We're finding that even Microsoft aren't recommending Internet Explorer these days. So I'm going to use Chrome as my browser to work through this example. And before we go any further, I'm just going to see if I can access the chat. I might have to stop sharing. I'm just going to stop sharing for a sec. I'm going to go to the chat. And what I'd like you to do is quickly put a response into the chat. Have you used any of the Adobe Spark tools before? Just give me a yes, no response really quickly. Go to the chat. Let's see, we've got yes, we've got no, we've got yes, we've got no, 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 yes, yes, no, 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 lots of no's, a few yeses, but mainly no. Oh, that's great. So that gives me a fair idea that most of you are brand new to the Spark tools. So that's good for me to be aware of. Now, I'm going to share my screen again, and let's get back to this browser. I'm using Chrome. And as I just bring in a fresh Chrome browser, hopefully you can see that. Feel free to use Firefox, Safari, Edge. Just try to avoid Internet Explorer. It's just not going to work as well for you. At the very top in the address bar, not the search part, but that'll work as well. But go to the address bar and type in for me spark.adobe.com. spark.adobe.com. And in fact, I'm going to put that into the chat pod right now, if I can. And I noticed in Zoom, you can't link directly. Your chat doesn't give you a direct link, but you can copy and paste that link into your browser if you need to. Otherwise, just type in spark.adobe.com. Just going back to share again. Once you've typed in spark.adobe.com into your browser and clicked enter, it'll encourage you on the top right-hand side to sign in. You'll find a little sign in button. When you click on that sign in button, you'll get a page that's similar to this. What you should be looking for, if you're working in the Catholic system in New South Wales, you should be fine to go log in with your school account. If you're working with the Catholic system in Queensland, you may find that that's not going to work for you. You might have to either create an Adobe ID or, just for the sake of time, just go straight in via your personal Google, Facebook, Apple, one of those IDs. Either way, that'll get you into the Spark tools. Through this system, it'll get you into the free version of Spark. If you log in with your school account, if you've got a federated ID system with your school, which most schools do, you'll get the full access to Spark, which there are some slight differences. So I'm going to assume that you've got a federated ID approach, and I'm going to log in like you would. You'd put in your school email address, and then you'd click continue. And if this doesn't work, you've always got Google, Facebook, and Apple to work with. I've got two accounts, so I'm just going to go into my company or school account. And at this point, you should start seeing your normal school login process happening, what's called a single sign-on process. And this is mine for Adobe. So I'm just going to sign in as if I was at your school, but I'm actually at Adobe, so that's why I'm coming in. I've actually got a second level of security I've got to go through, which happens in some organizations. I'm just going through that now on my phone to verify who I am. So now that it knows that it is me going in, it's now opening up. By now, hopefully you have got yourself into Spark. And I think if it's the first time that you've done it, you end up getting this kind of almost like a marketing page, which kind of, I think it provides a range of information about what Spark is and so on. If you can actually close that down, there should be an X somewhere. What you're looking for is a page that looks something like this, and it has a button called Create a Project. That blue button with the little plus on it, it might be on the right-hand side or on the left-hand side, but that's what you're looking for. And when you click on that button, you can see all the different projects that can be created with Adobe Spark. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'm going to check the chat to see, and give me a quick response now, folks, if you wouldn't mind. Have you now logged into Spark? Yes or no? Let's just have a quick look. I just want to see who's with me and who's really struggling. So we've got lots of yeses. We've got a no. If you're a no, give yourself some time now to keep going through that process if you can. Otherwise, just take notes of what we're doing. So we're getting quite a few no's, which means they're either not doing it because there's a technical issue or they just can't be bothered, which is fine. You're on holidays. Or you could just look on and take notes because we haven't got a lot of time together. Looks like almost just over 50% of you are in and quite a few aren't in. Hopefully it's not because of technical reasons. But if you're not in at this stage, can I recommend, access denied. So you probably need to log in through your Google or your Facebook or your Apple ID, or create an Adobe ID if you want to. The advantage of creating an Adobe ID through your email is that you get access to all 15 of our free apps through your Adobe ID, whereas Google, Facebook, and Apple only give you access to Spark. So looks like most of you are okay, or about just over half of you, I'd say, at this stage. So I'm going to keep going on. And because we haven't got a lot of time together, I will be giving you lots of resources where you can go and learn this stuff if you think it's valuable. And just about everyone thinks it's valuable when they get into it. What we're going to be doing is we're actually going to create a video. Now, video is so important when you're teaching in a synchronous and an asynchronous model. Some people say, well, why would it be important for a synchronous model like what we're doing? Well, the fact is, when you're teaching online, you really don't want to be spending a lot of time in a synchronous model. It's hard. It's like being a radio presenter. It's like being a television live broadcaster. It's not an easy thing to do. And so you want to try and give your students as much pre-recorded stuff as possible in advance, almost like in a flipped learning environment. I'll be giving you some tips and tricks on that a little bit later. So video has become more important than ever before for the average teacher to share communication, just to get things done in advance of a synchronous session. Or when they're in a synchronous session, they can then cut to a video to explain something. But then think of it from a student's perspective. Having video as a way for a student to construct their learning, wow. To be able to develop video skills during this time would be one of the great benefits of this time, basically, if you think about it, especially if it's something you haven't really looked at in the past. Now, with Spark, you can create lots of flyers, Instagram posts, Facebook covers. They're all part of what we call Spark Post. Web page is Spark Page, and video is Spark Video. And in fact, before we go into the video side, just jump into the web page side now. So click on web page, and that's going to give you a taste of this. And I'll let you actually create a web page throughout this session if you can. See where it says add a title. So I'm going to call this Adobe Workshop. And the subtitle, let's do CENET, just for the fun of it. Now, it's pretty boring at the moment, but if you click the little plus symbol down the bottom, it encourages you to add a photo to your web page. Now, this is not a web page that has to go on the internet. This could be a web page that you just share with the person next to you, or you just share with your teacher. It can be a public web page, but you have control. Have a look on the right-hand side. You can see where you can upload any photo in the background, but you really think of two things when you're uploading a photo anywhere. Do you own that photo? Is it a photo that you have taken? Or is it a photo that you have taken from the internet? And if that's the case, do you know that you have rights to access that photo? And if you're not sure, don't use it, because you could potentially be publishing this. So please only publish photos that you know you can use. The other thing is the technical side. Is that photo at a size that you can actually load into an online system? If it's a photo you've taken with your photo with your camera, it's likely to be this massive file that's really too hard, too large to bring into an online system. So it needs to be compressed. And if you don't know how to do that, don't use that photo, because it's just going to clog up the system and clog up the internet and cause grief for everybody. I've got a wonderful tutorial, a really wonderful tutorial on one of my EduTips series that some of you might be aware of. I'll give you a link to that soon, on how to compress images with the world's best image manipulation software called Photoshop. And even if you don't want to know about Photoshop, if you just learn that one little technique with Photoshop, it's going to make things so much easier for you when you're publishing images online. In the meantime, go to this one that says find free photos. If you go to find free photos and just do a search, I'm going to do a search for creativity. And what you find here is a whole lot of royalty-free images from Unsplash. And if you click the little arrow, you can also choose to go to Pixabay, two fantastic sources of royalty-free images that are Creative Commons. You can publish these, and they're even credited at the end of your web page automatically, or at the end of your video automatically, which is really cool. So I'm going to quickly choose just one of them. I'll just choose that one for the sake of it. And that's loading in the background. It's a reasonable resolution, so it shouldn't take too long to save in there. And I've got the start of my web page. I'm not quite happy with the font, so I'm going to go to my themes, top right-hand side. And the top themes are the ones that I've branded myself with Adobe branding, but you can brand them with your school branding, have your school fonts and your school colors there if you've got the full version. Otherwise, you've got these amazing free templates that you can just jump into and give it a different look and feel. I'll go with that one. That looks quite nice. As you scroll down, you've got another plus symbol that gives you all your main buttons, adding more photos, adding text, adding hyperlinks, adding videos. And this is where you can embed. I'll just click that button now. You can see you can embed any video from YouTube, any video from Vimeo, and any video from Spark Video that you have created in Spark Video and saved into one of our web servers. As long as you've got the link to that video, it will embed and stream into your publication. Now, the reason why you can grab any video from YouTube or Vimeo is because it's streaming from them. It's not like you've stolen that video. You're still referring to YouTube and referring to Vimeo. It's just embedding itself inside your page. So that's a really cool tip. And the other one is a grid of photos, like a gallery of images, a glide show, which is a beautiful way of presenting with an image in the background, and another one floating over the top, or a video floating over the top of your background. This is an incredibly powerful digital portfolio solution that I see being used all over the world by teachers and students. And then a split layout where you can have a photo on one side and text on the other and so on. So lots of options for you. I'm not going to go into those anymore. If you want to have a play, please have a play. And if you are quick enough or keen enough to actually publish your page, say in the last 10 minutes of this session, I'll keep Mark looking at the chat pod, and if he suddenly sees a publication of a Spark page, we'll have a look at it together to see what you've actually created. So there's a challenge for you now to see if you can actually build one during this session, build a Spark page. The reason why I want to move on is because I want to focus on Spark Video as a really important tool for online teaching. Spark Pages as well. You think about how a student could be using this to construct their learning, to create content. But every so often you want to share some sort of curriculum material. So you'd probably want to create a Spark page that has some text, some images, some questions, but then have a video to explain what they're meant to be doing, and then use that video as a stimulus for them to be asking questions. And we're going to actually go through that process right now. Feel free to open up another browser window. So I'm going to go to File, New Window. And that's going to keep my Spark page in the background. And I'm now going to go in and create another, go to spark.adobe.com again. I shouldn't need to sign in a second time because it's remembered I was already signed in. And this time when I go to create a project, I'm going to create a video. Every great story starts somewhere. It has a little section where you can put in the title. Just skip that. That's a bit of a gimmicky thing. This is quite clever, actually, if you're a primary teacher and you'd have to teach English, or if you're an English teacher, just to give yourself a scaffold on how to tell a story in a particular genre. And we provide a whole range of different genres of storytelling, and then you get that scaffold to work with as you build your video. That's really cool, but if you're not an English teacher, it's probably not as relevant. So I'm going to go to Start from Scratch. And when you click Start from Scratch, it's starting to load the template, or starting to load the environment that's going to help us to build this video. Spark Video is the simplest way to make a quality video. And I say that, I've been saying that for a few years now, and I'm yet to find another product that will make a video as easy as Spark Video does, and allows you the same sort of features. It allows you to text and images and voiceovers and music and all of that in such a simple format. And I'm yet to find another tool that does it so simply. A little tutorial comes up when you load up. Notice I have to wait a few seconds. I'm going to close that tutorial. You don't need that. You've got me. It took a little while to load because I'm using the browser version. If you're lucky enough at your school to have an iPad, sets of iPads, or your students have iPads, it is an iPad app called Spark Video, and it just works. There's no waiting. It just works because it's built into the app. At the moment, I'm using the Wi-Fi to make this work, so there is a little bit of delay here and there. All right, we're going to create a little story, and I really enjoy working with Catholic teachers because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a little story that kind of connects to the Bible in a sense here as well. And this is a bit of a story about a town that is very close to my heart, a town that I used to live in many, many years ago in the 70s. Yes, I'm that old. Called Nazareth. And Nazareth is very famous. So I've just got a little script for my video on one screen, and I'm going to use that as the basis of this story. So I'm going to start by a statement here called Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. So I'm going to say that as my first voiceover. And that little red dot there allows me to record the voiceover. As I click and hold that down, I'll say that statement and it'll record the first part of my story. Here we go. Nazareth is the capital of north of Israel. And I made a mistake there, didn't I? I didn't say the north. So I'm just going to click that red button and do it again. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. So now that I've done that, I could then go and start thinking about what I'm going to do in terms of images for my story. I could click on video and bring in some video content and even trim out just the parts of the video that I want for this section of the video. I need to have that video already pre-made, so filmed on my camera with my phone and then brought into my laptop. If I'm working with the iPad, I can just go straight to the camera on my iPad, or quickly record something on my iPhone or my iPad, bring that in. In this case, I could just use text and just have the word Nazareth, but I've actually got a photo pre-organized for this. So I'm going to click on photo and I'm going to go to upload photo. And I made sure that these were royalty-free images as well. And if we go to my desktop, I should have a folder of images. So the first one here is just a picture of Nazareth. So I'm going to click on open, and that image is starting to come up. I got this from Adobe stock, which is a fantastic source of millions of images, quality images. I've grabbed the low-res versions of these. That's why they've got the branding Adobe stock on them. If I licensed it, if I actually bought the image, I would have the full version of it, but I'm not going to bother for this story. So there's the start. Now, if I want to play this, I'm going to click the play button. We'll see what it's like. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. So I've started my story and I've got some music in the background automatically, and the music was okay, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. So if I jump up to the top right-hand corner where it says music, I've got a whole range of royalty-free music that I could use under the headings of happy and playful and relaxed and rousing and thematic and thoughtful. And if I wanted to listen to them, I could click the word, but that would load the song. And on the browser version, that takes a bit of time. On the iPad version, it just works straight away, so no worries. But on the browser version, I'd like to preview the song first. So I hit the little play button next to the song, listen to it, thinking, oh yeah, it could be okay. Could be okay. Just going down to something a bit more, it's a bit weird. Looks a bit weird. That'll do. I'm happy with that for the theme of this. So it's called Distance Telegram. I hit the word and now it's loading the song. So as I said earlier, you don't have to preview it with the iPad or the iPhone. You just click the music, it previews and loads at the same time. Any second now that music's gone in, I hit the play button. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. So I've got the start of my story. I'm going to hit the plus symbol again and I can just go into text and type in the word Nazareth. Hit the play button again. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. Not happy that Nazareth is right in the middle, so I'm just going to drag it down to the bottom left-hand corner. And I'm also not happy with the theme, so I'm going to jump up to theme. The themes are, again, my Adobe branding. I could scroll down and have a look at some other branding here. So I'm going to try a different one here and try this one. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. That's better. Good. Now to get to a new section of the video, I'm going to click this button here down the bottom left-hand corner, and it gives me a brand new section ready for my next statement, which is this one. It is most well known as the town where Jesus grew up over 2,000 years ago. Now, if I go to my photos and just quickly find my photo, which I was going to do for number 2, and that appears there. And now when I'll play my whole story so far, I'm going to go with this play button down the bottom left-hand corner, as opposed to this one, because that'll just play that one section, but this will play the whole story. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. It is most well known as the town where Jesus grew up over 2,000 years ago. And now I'll just jump out of preview mode back into edit mode, going to another section of the story. Oh, look what's happened. That section's gone in between. I didn't want that, so I'm just going to click and drag that over because I want that as my third section, not in my second section, to another voiceover, which will be something like this. These days, it's a thriving town of about 120,000 people. And let's just go with images again and find my third image, which is modern Nazareth. And I'm going to do just a bit of quick text called Nazareth today, and maybe even move that, although it's not good form in video to move into different sections, but just to show you that you can. So let's have a look at the story so far. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. It is most well known as the town where Jesus grew up over 2,000 years ago. These days, it's a thriving town of about 120,000 people. Okay, I'm happy with the story so far. Let's just quickly finish off the story now. I'll just jump into my next section. And my next voiceover is this one here. It's the largest Palestinian town in Israel with a mix of about 80,000 Muslim and Christian Arabs who are citizens of Israel. And I'll just quickly go into, what am I up to, my fourth one. It's the marketplace in Nazareth. And then I'll just go to my next one. Next voiceover will be something like, about 40,000 Jewish citizens live in what's called Upper Nazareth. And quickly add my photo. And then go to the last part. It's a wonderful example of how Jews and Arabs have lived in harmony for hundreds of years. And then I'll just bring in my last photo. All right, so let's play the whole story now. Nazareth is the capital of the north of Israel. It is most well known as the town where Jesus grew up over 2,000 years ago. These days, it's a thriving town of about 120,000 people. It's the largest Palestinian town in Israel with a mix of about 80,000 Muslim and Christian Arabs who are citizens of Israel. About 40,000 Jewish citizens live in what's called Upper Nazareth. It's a wonderful example of how Jews and Arabs have lived in harmony for hundreds of years. All right, so that gives you an example. And once I've done it and I'm happy with it, I can go to download. If I go to download, it'll download the video as a video file on my computer. Or I could go to share. And if I go to share, I can go to publish. And if I go to publish, I'll just give it a category, maybe education. And I could turn on or off my author attribution. Usually when I'm working with students, I'll say turn that off, keep it as things as private as possible, and then click create link. So this is now generating this video, sending it up to one of our video servers, and then I'll get a hyperlink that I can then bring into my Spark page. So I can embed this video into my Spark page or into my learning management system, and whichever way I wanted to communicate that video, or even just email it out, or yeah, it's not the most efficient way of doing it. So that link should be there any second now. Here it comes. In 3, 2, 1, bang. Bang. I think my daughter's on Netflix. Here we go. Beautiful. All right. So I'm going to click copy to that. Notice I could also grab the embed code. So if you know anything about coding, I can embed that into my website. Notice it also links to Google Classrooms if you're a Google school. I can tell you something for nothing here too. It doesn't mean as much for you guys, I don't think, but we're about to have a link for Canvas for those who use the Canvas learning management system. So that should be appearing soon. So I've copied that. I'm just going to jump into my Spark page and go to my video section and paste that link into my video link, click save. And now with that Spark page, Adobe Workshop, as I scroll down, any second now that video should embed itself. It's coming in now, and there it is. And when I click on play to that, it'll play the video in full screen. And then if I wanted to share this Spark page, I could go to share, just like I did before. Before I do though, notice there's a button called invite, which is a really cool feature. It means you can actually invite someone else to collaborate with you, to help you build that video, to help you build this Spark page. So it becomes a collaboration tool as well as a tool just for you. There's also a print feature here. It actually converts it into a PDF document. Obviously the video won't play, but if you're really worried about the whole cloud side of things, if that still concerns you, then you can actually print this off as a PDF. If I go to publish and share link now, and it's pick a category, I'll say education. I'm going to turn off the author attribution. It's automatically crediting that image, which is great. I can change the credits if I wanted to, click create link. And now it's doing the same as what we did before. It's now generating a link for that video. So with the last sort of 10, 15 minutes that we've got together, I'm just going to copy that link and I'm going to paste mine into the chat pod, so that you can see yourself how it works. So if you grab that link and pasted it into a browser, you'll see my Spark page and my video that I've already built. Hopefully you will have a Spark page that you've been creating, and you'll bring that into your into the chat so that Mark can take a note of who's there. We might have a quick look at it. But while we're waiting for you guys to have a look at the to keep working on your Spark pages, I'm just going to share my screen again. And I'd like to just give you some resources. This one's pretty cool. This one is actually a whole lot of tutorials. In fact, what I'm going to do is bring these into the chat pod as well. These are my edu tips, little video tutorials that I do. Try to do one a week, but usually one a month is more realistic. And I'm just going to paste that into the chat pod. And the next one is a resource about Spark for K-12. I'll put that into the chat pod. And the next one is a link from the Adobe Education Exchange that's dedicated to Adobe Spark. So they're coming in now. And what I will do is just advertise the fact. I'll just share my screen again. I'm not sharing, am I? Let me just quickly share my screen again. And tomorrow, in my session tomorrow, I'm going to go to the next level with video with Premiere Rush. I'm actually going to create the same video, but do it in a way that gives you so many more features. You saw how simple it was to create a Spark video. It is so basic, and yet there's a lot of limitations as well. Whereas Premiere Rush, it opens up. You have 4 layers of video and 4 layers of audio to play with. So much more power, and you can do it all on your phone, Android or iOS, and your tablet and your browser, not your browser, your laptop or your desktop with Premiere Rush. Amazing tool, and we'll have a look at that in tomorrow's session. Just for an overview of the Creative Cloud, just really quickly, because I know we're going to run out of time soon. These are all the apps in categories. So these are all the apps that are used for images, for photography, for illustrations, for graphics. You can see everyone knows Photoshop, but there's a whole lot of apps there. And the ones that I'm circling are the ones that I'm seeing being used by the average teacher, not necessarily the IT, media, and arts teachers. I mean, they have to use our products all the time because that's what they live and breathe, basically. But the average maths and science and English and primary teacher, to see them using Photoshop and Fresco and Spark Post is heartwarming. It's great to see how digital literacy is just expanding so much amongst all teachers. In terms of apps for print and presentations. There's the full gamut. I've kind of gone from professional high-end down to basic on the right-hand side, and anywhere in between, sort of. And the ones that I've highlighted are the ones that I'm seeing being used by the average teacher as well. This is my passion: video and sound. Apps for video production, for film, for animation, for sound production, for podcasting, and for audio recordings. Again, from one extreme end, Premiere Pro, which is used literally by Marvel Studios and the very, very high-end multimedia companies around the world, right down to Spark Video. Notice that Premiere Rush fits in the middle there. And what's the next one here? Apps for augmented reality experiences, for 360-degree video editing, for virtual reality and 3D design. Some really cool apps there. Aero is a free app for augmented reality. Have a look at it if you're interested in just inspiring students to create stories from an augmented reality experience that they've built on their iPad. Amazing. And apps for online and mobile app development, such as for web design, for web development, for app design, for app prototyping, and for app development. Experience design has become incredibly popular. Just a different alternative for a student to create a presentation by doing an app and actually having the fully prototyped app that they can share with their teacher. Rather than having a PowerPoint presentation, let's do an app. Let's do something that we can look at on our phone and click and show. And that's what experience design is all about. Finally, I just want to go through some really key resources. And this one is that article that I mentioned before. So I'm just going to grab this one and put it into the chat. Just seeing if there's a way I can do that without stop sharing. It looks, I'm not as familiar with Zoom as I am with other.
Can I just quickly jump in there, Tim?
Thanks, Mark.
For the people who are trying to copy the links from the chat, I believe most people are having trouble selecting and copying. Please correct me if that's not the case. But what I will do is I'll add each of those links to with the presentation to the website as soon as this is over.
Great. I'll keep putting them in anyway so that you get access to them. So this is the article I wrote a couple of weeks ago, and that's a summary of all the tips and tricks. We haven't got time to go through them all. I might go through a few of them in my session tomorrow, but here's a top one for you. If you can, plug in your computer. Don't just use your Wi-Fi. I'm plugged in to my network because I'm lucky enough to have a house that's relatively modern and it has network points around in lots of the rooms. If you're doing a synchronous session with Zoom or whatever application you're working with, if you're relying on Wi-Fi and you've got 10 other people in your house who are using it too, it's not going to work. But if you can plug in, it makes things so much easier. It's just one of many tips that I'll recommend. This is the Adobe Help Center. I'm just going to quickly grab that link here. This is a one-stop shop. I wasn't sharing them, was I? Here's a one-stop shop for help with anything to do with Adobe, from beginner's guides to full-on masterclasses. And I'll start sharing again. Mark, is there a way of accessing the chat pod while I'm still sharing so I don't have to stop sharing each time?
What happens when you just click on the chat button in the bottom?
Down the bottom. Because I'm in sharing mode, I can only see my screen.
You're not seeing controls on your screen?
I can see mute, stop video, security, participants, new share, pause, annotations, remote control, more. Oh, chat, here we go. Good, yeah, thank you. I found it. Beautiful. Adobe Education Exchange. This is amazing. If you're not already a member, let me encourage you to join up for free, because it's now 180,000 teachers, primary, secondary, higher ed, all sharing how they use our products to be creative in the classroom, and lots of our professional learning. We've just dedicated a brand new section on the Education Exchange for distance learning to help teachers who are having to do that. And I'm just bringing that up now. It's incredible resources. We've just teamed up with the Khan Academy. So the Adobe Khan Academy resources for students to help them be creative while they're learning from home. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Let me jump to the next one, which is our YouTube channel. This is our YouTube Creative Cloud YouTube channel. Lots of great resources there. And this one is our Adobe for Educators YouTube channel, specifically for teachers. This is Adobe Live. And if you're particularly if you're a design teacher or if you're interested in graphic design, to actually have a live channel out there from top graphic designers. I've mentioned the Ardu tips before. I'll bring that back in again in case you missed it. They're just resources that I create regularly. And this is the weekly webinars that I'm running now every Wednesday night. And sometimes it's on a different time, but you can have a look through this channel here as to when they are. They go for an hour. They're all they go for 2 hours. They're NESA accredited. So when you jump in here, you actually get NESA hours for being part of these webinars. The next one is on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. They go from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock PM. And I'm trying to remember, this one is on, I can't remember the theme for this one. I've got Dr. Max Sleesher from Swinburne University joining me for this one this week. I know that. What else have we got? If you are interested in our Campus Leader program, we run a regular leadership program for teachers. And this year we're actually going to be sending one of our campus leaders, if we're allowed to travel, which may not happen, but we've got the budget to send a teacher to Los Angeles for the Adobe Max conference. If we can't, we've got about $5,000 we're going to be spending on that teacher anyway, that we have to spend this year. So there's a big incentive to become a campus leader or an education leader. It's a great program. Our summit is in Sydney every year. We get teachers from all over the Asia Pacific region coming into Sydney for that summit. And this year it's going to be mainly online as well, so anyone can join in. And finally, I just want to give you a summary, and that QR code there, if you want to hover your camera over that QR code, it'll take you into a form. I'll bring in the link into the chat pod. And that will allow you to get in touch with us. So if you're interested in finding out a bit more, if you want to get onto my email list, if you're not already on my email list and you're not regularly in touch with me, I encourage you to do that. I email about once a term, so it's not huge. But just to keep you in touch with the world of Adobe in education. And you can be in touch with us if you want to through that contact form there. Mark, that's about it. I'm going to keep that slide up. I'll keep it in full presentation mode. That's a summary there if people want to do a screen grab of it, if they want to take a photo of it. It's a summary of most of the resources that I've shared. Is there anything in the chat pod that I need to address before we finish up?
I've just been monitoring the chat as we go and responded to a couple of questions. One thing that I wasn't 100% sure on was the possible length of a Adobe movie video.
Look, every one of those little segments, you can have a maximum of 30 seconds per segment. There isn't actually I don't think there is a time limit, but the thing is, when I teach video production, I encourage teachers to keep their videos down to a maximum of 3 to 5 minutes. Please don't, if you need to have a full 15-minute production, break it into 3 different part 1, part 2, part 3, or whatever. Students, they don't like watching videos more than 3 minutes. You find they won't be watching them if they go longer than 3, and keep them short and sharp. Another little tip that I teach is the 7-second rule. Try to make sure your images are changing every 7 seconds. Otherwise, you will lose the attention of your audience. So they're just little things that I teach when I do my video production courses.
Yeah, look, I think they're great tips because it is pretty difficult for kids to be sitting down and watching a screen, or adults for that matter. So keeping that change is great. Now, hopefully you can just see now our session evaluation screen, which has got a QR code. It's also got a bit.ly link. So if you type in the bit.ly, upper and lowercase does matter. Or if you just use the camera on your phone and shine it at the screen, it will actually give you a link that you can go follow to go to this quick evaluation. It should take you somewhere in the vicinity of 40 seconds. So, but it will be really helpful for us for feedback. I would also like to say a big thank you to Tim for giving up his time today and designing something for us to help you meet your needs. I have used Spark. It's great to have different tools that you can use. So thank you very much, Tim, for your time. Thank you to the teachers for their time as well.
And Mark, were any Spark pages published in the chat at all?
I didn't see any published in the chat.
Oh, I didn't give you enough time, did I? That's fine.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, please ask the questions in the chat and we'll keep monitoring that. Otherwise, there is another session coming up. There's a session every hour for the next 5 days. So there's lots and lots of learning. I would suggest people have a good look at the descriptions, work out the things that are going to suit their particular needs. Thank you for your attention, and thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow at my session, which is on at, just remember, 12 o'clock, I think, from memory. Yeah, 12 o'clock tomorrow. So hopefully some of you will catch me then.
Okay. Thank you very much. Tim, I'm just having a look at the chat. We've got lots of thank yous. I don't see any questions yet. If there's still 28 people online, there was a question that I answered around embedding some of the products they've created into Google Classroom. The students don't need to have Adobe accounts or anything to actually view what the teachers have created. They just click on the link and it'll open in a browser.
Correct. Well done.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that was good. So your session, is it tomorrow or Wednesday?
Wednesday night. That is necessary accredited, whereas Alex is asking if this one was. I believe it's not. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, no, each of these is teacher identified.
And someone's asking, how do we access it?
Yeah, when will the recording be up on the website? It takes Zoom a little bit, 30 minutes or so to process it, and then it's available to us. These will probably be up by tonight.
And with my Wednesday night webinars, I automatically, in the feedback form, I get your NESA number, and then I do the processing in the back end so that it becomes part of your NESA hours for the Wednesday night sessions.
I imagine there's a lot of particularly casual teachers that would really appreciate being able to get an hour's accredited.
2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
Yeah. Even better.
Okay. I think that's probably it.
Terrific. All right. Thanks, Mark. I'll see you tomorrow.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Right.
All right. Bye.